What's goody, YouTube? It's your boy Drizzy here, and as you can see, I am gonna be talking about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet today. I had already recorded this video like 2 weeks ago. However, I've progressed a little farther. At that point, I had beaten the game, but I hadn't gone to Area 0. This is post Area 0. This is post 6-star raid. This is post getting the legendary level 100 Charizard raid with my Azumarill, of course. There are some things I want to talk about, and I decided in that video I talked essentially like half and half, like someone that plays Pokemon games and someone that doesn't play Pokemon games. I'm still gonna somewhat do that in this video, but it's gonna be a little less. So the first thing I want to note on is I want to note on some of the bad things, because I think that the first thing I should note on is the bad things, because there is a decent amount of good things, and I don't want people to come to this video thinking that I think that Game Freak did everything right. Now, I will say this: the majority of the bugs that I faced during the beginning of the launch of the game, which I played during launch, they're gone now in the update. They are gone. All of my issues are gone. However, I do know there are some more bugs. However, I cannot talk about bugs that I never experienced. I'm only going to be able to talk about the bugs that I experienced. And some of them being, anytime I was in water, my frame rate would drop like horrendously bad. Anytime it was raining, sandstorming, and even the entire time I was on the mountain and it was snowing, my frames were also really bad. Another thing that I didn't really like was that the background characters were at like literally 2 FPS. So when you see them walking around, they literally look like JPEGs moving about. And another bug that I always faced was the fact that my game would crash quite literally every like 30 to 45 minutes. A lot of the times on stream, it was spent me reopening the game because of how many times it would crash. Luckily, I kept autosave on the entire time because I wasn't shiny hunting. I kept autosave on, so I never really lost any data or anything like that. I definitely would have if I would have turned autosave off. And then there's just this like false narrative that you can realistically do everything. You can, don't get me wrong, and I see the TikToks and I've seen people catch all Pokemon before doing any of the gyms, doing any of the Titans and anything like that. However, I personally think that those people are absolute freaks. And I mean that in the nicest way possible, because there's some routes that I couldn't even fathom of how to get to without having climb or without having anything like that. I just don't see how some of the routes, it doesn't make sense in my brain. But I guess to be fair, the entire time that I was trying to figure out how to get to more routes without doing less stuff, I had to look at the map that was flipped, and I'm stupid, so I couldn't figure out where I was supposed to be going, and I spent 90% of my gameplay running in circles because I kept going the wrong way. That's just me being dumb. But all in all, you can do it. However, it is going to be increasingly difficult. If you don't necessarily care about Pokemon not listening to you, you can do it. If you don't care about it taking far more Pokeballs than it should to catch a certain Pokemon, you can. However, the false narrative makes it seem like you can fight whatever gym in whatever order, whatever team star rate in whatever order, and it's got a level cap to you. It doesn't. There are level cap. There are, like, the gyms are certain levels. And oddly enough, as someone who takes coding classes, it's really not that difficult. I don't want to mean that it's not that difficult. It's not as difficult as it seems to make rotating levels, if that makes any sense. All you would need to do is run a program that checks how many badges that the person has, or how many team star raids you've done, or how many Titans you have done, and determine what would be the right level for that. If you've done none, it should be like 14. If you've done one, it should be like 20. You see what I'm saying? It's really not, it's not that it's not difficult. It's extra work, but it's something that is definitely doable in a sense. It's not like it's like it's not like you're doing a whole nother game. You're literally just adding a program into the game that would make it seem more universal. Like if I could fight whatever gym in whatever order, I would have. You see what I'm saying? Now, that's enough of the actual like legitimate bad things that I had. And yes, I do know that there are other bugs. I'm going to say it again. I do know that there's other bugs. However, the bugs that I mentioned in that previous section are the only bugs that I witnessed. So those are the only bugs that I feel comfortable to talk about. I'm not going to talk about bugs that I didn't get. So next up, we have the good things. This story was easily the best Pokemon story that I've ever seen in my entire life. Even the gym challenges felt like they had a decent story to them. But the Titans, Team Star, Area Zero, Maridon and Koridon, like the whole story to a T was gut-wrenching, tear-filling. It was beautiful. It really was. And I can safely say this is the first generation to have multiple rivals, that all of the rivals were well written. I'm looking at you, X and Y. I'm seriously looking at you, X and Y. No. Like I'm actually looking at you, X and Y. Like your rivals weren't that good. I'm gonna be honest. Nemona being a battle fiend yandere almost, just as I don't know why, but it just felt right to me. It just felt perfect to me because in this region in its own, they don't necessarily like force you to go down one path. You could go to the gym challenges, you could get a job, you could do whatever. Gym challenges isn't everything here, and that's what they're trying to note on the fact. And her being a battle fiend, just and telling you all about the gyms and stuff like that, walking you through, and even cheering you on throughout all the gyms, makes it feel like, you know, I don't have to be here, but I definitely feel like I want to be here, if that makes any sense. And then you have Team Star with Penny. Spoiler, sorry, my bad. With Cassiopeia and the rest of Team Star, like Mela and the rest of them, how they were just a group of like delinquents and didn't really fit in, and they were getting bullied and all that, this and that. And then you have Clive and me trying to figure out why they're doing what they're doing. It's just, to me, it was really adorable, honestly. And it's somewhat relatable, but I never was bullied, but I was also a weird kid. Didn't have a large amount of friends. Did have a good bit amount of friends, but I was never bullied, so that's besides the point. But it did feel a little bit relatable in a sense. However, still gut-wrenching and tear-filling in its own right. And then you got Arvin's story, and Arvin's story is the actual literal most heart-wrenching. I'm not going to give you any spoilers about Area Zero, but obviously with the Titans, it's about his dog and stuff like that. It's crazy to me that Pokemon is still considered a children's game for how long it's been, because I would imagine they would have released like something that was meant for a more mature audience. And I feel like this might actually be the game, because I can physically tell you, if I was like 9, 10, 11 playing this game, I don't think I would have been able to finish it, because I think I would have been crying from the start to the end. Like literally everything besides catching Pokemon was sad. It was really depressing. This game was really, really depressing. I want to see how they're gonna do the DLC, because of what happens at the end. I'm not gonna give you any spoilers, obviously, because I mean it's still kind of a decent game. It's still kind of like a new game, so I don't want to give you guys any spoilers yet. But I wonder how they're gonna do a DLC. But in terms of things that I did just remember that I forgot to mention, the fact about the matter is that while Game Freak is, or Pokemon is, a like billion-dollar company, ridiculous money, they don't really spend that much money on the games, and their development team for the games is a lot smaller than a lot of people realize. It's really not as big as people think. And the majority, which is kind of weird, the majority of their development team isn't even on debug, isn't on programming, isn't on coding. It's the art team. The art team has the majority of the people underneath their umbrella company. I'm just gonna tell you this. They spend a lot more money on merch than they do on games. People are thinking because they make all this much money, they spend it all on the games. They do not spend it all on the games. They spend it on merch, they spend it on the anime, they spend it on literally everything else. They actually spend the least amount of money on the games. That's not to discredit, or that's not to credit them for their flaws. However, I will note on the fact that literally every game I think I've ever played on the Switch has had the what's it called, where the world seems to unrender at a certain distance. This is just to protect the hardware. And you can even argue, and I know everyone's gonna say this, Breath of the Wild didn't have this, Breath of the Wild didn't have this. I didn't even play Breath of the Wild. I watched someone play Breath of the Wild, and I can physically see it. It's just, it looks, you can tell that it's not rendered to its full form. Now, that's not to discredit Breath of the Wild at all. Breath of the Wild is an amazing game. The thing is that it's gonna be hyper focused on Game Freak, because Game Freak is realistically only good at making 2D mobile games. The 2D mobile game looking-esque things. If you can straight up tell me right here and now, if Pokemon released right now, it wouldn't be a shitty mobile game with microtransactions, yeah, you're sitting here lying. I know for a fact it would be a mobile game, a shitty mobile game with microtransactions. I guarantee it. And that's the thing, is that Game Freak is really good at making those games. Like, take for example, literally every other generation but Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet. They were all 2D. I mean, technically you could argue they were 3D on the 3DS, but you see what I'm saying? They're good on those type of games. We have to give them a little bit more time, I believe, for them to perfect this art of making true 3D open world games. I think the next game after this will be even better, and then the next game after that will be even better, and then the next game after that will be even better. We just need to give them a tad bit more time. And I know that you guys don't want to, because you want them to make a perfect game on release. However, can you name to me any games that have been perfect on release in the past 15 years? Only one I can name off the top of my hand is God of War. Because Elden Ring had an awful amount of bugs, and also was completely unbalanced on release. And it didn't become balanced until later on. Cyberpunk, everyone's favorite game to rag on, is actually really good now because it got rid of all of its bugs. No game since, actually, I don't want to say 15 years. That's a long time. No game since, like, I want to say maybe 2017, 2016. Ever since, like, the gameplay demos and stuff like that have, like, started, no game has actually legitimately released perfect. They don't get perfect till, like, 2-3 years later down the line. It's been a very long time since, like, AAA games have released perfect. Ever since COD went on that down spiral after, like, the 03 era, no game has really released perfect. That's all I wanted to say about this topic. So really, realistically, what I want you guys to do as a fan base, or even as in someone who's new to Pokemon, I want you to take everything that's bad about this game, take it with a grain of salt, because a lot of people have this sort of binoculars onto the bad, but don't pay attention to the good. And then with other products, say for example Pokemon Legends Arceus, which I played, I put like literally like 240 hours into Pokemon Legends Arceus. They have this binoculars onto only the good things of how they changed the meta of Pokemon games, how they changed Pokemon for the better, this, that, and the third. and they don't pay attention to the bad things. Pokemon Legends Arceus had these same bugs. Not the same bugs, but very similar bugs to this game. They're still working the kinks out on making a 3D game. So, like I said, I want you to take everything with a grain of salt. If they produce a perfect Pokemon game before the end of my lifetime, I will be absolutely shocked, because the community is always at each other's throats. There's never going to be a quote-unquote perfect game with the community that we have now. I just think that for now, I want you guys to take it as a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt. Continue to play the Pokemon games that you love to play, and move on. And to wrap up this video is a little longer than I was hoping for, but I feel like I got the words that I wanted to get out. This game is quite literally maybe top 1, top 3, somewhere in that range Pokemon games. But there are going to be some people that aren't going to buy the game because there's nothing but trash talk on TikTok about how bad the rendering is, how bad the frame rate is, how bad this, that, and the third is. This game is amazing. It really is. There's never a time where I genuinely feel bored in this game. There's always something to do. Even in post-game, there's always something to do. This game is great. It has a little bit of some issues with bugs, things like that. But I definitely think that over time, the bugs will be gone, and this game will be immortalized in history. And I don't want you guys to miss out on that opportunity to play such a great Pokemon game. With that being said, this is your boy Drizzy. I'm out. Peace out!